No, no buzz. A Just Bees book club. Um, gonna talk today about a book I read today. Uh, Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. Um, I know precisely jack shit about Claire Keegan. Seems like she is somebody who has had a lot of accolades that I am completely unaware of. I'm also totally not aware of Irish literature really at all. So when I say things like it reminds me a lot of Dubliners, take me with a grain of salt, I hope. Um, but yeah, I this came out I think on November 30th of 2021 in like a slim hardcover. This is um like many things I will be talking about, have talked about on this, an advanced reader copy that I picked up. I don't even remember when. I don't remember why. Probably just because it was a slim thing, and I'm unfamiliar with Irish literature, and I was curious. That I happened to pick up and actually read in the last day or two, because it's a slim thing that I'm mostly unfamiliar with and was curious about. This is like something I'm really not generally into. This Small Things Like These is, um, I think the political pitch is it is um, a short novella, a short novel about the Magdalen laundries, which is a thing that I was completely unaware of, but was basically a specific type of forced labor um, in Ireland that started in the late or mid 1700s and didn't get like shut down until the mid 90s, like 1990s. So like 200 years or so um, of sort of nunneries that would bring in fallen women. Yeah, that would force them to work without pay at a laundromat, basically like a yeah. They would run local laundromats in Ireland, and how fucked that is I think the political pitch, like I was saying. The sort of literary pitch, I think, is this is Dickens' Christmas Carol comes up very early in this. It is a Christmas focused book. It is full of really good sort of short to medium length sentences written not in like a particular Irish dialect or anything like that, but like what does it have? It has a pace to it that is like each sentence I can't, I would have to like do a really deep dive to like actually support this point, but like the sense I got is like it doesn't really vary its sentence structure a ton. It kind of is very m- you know mid-ish length sentences throughout. um is It's beautiful, I think. It is like very well written. Oops. It's like hmm. I'll do a reading thing from it, and it might actually be a longer one, because I kind of want to read from the end of this book, because I think that like the very high level pitch is that this is a morality tale set on Christmas in '85. And I say morality tale not like broadly like it has a moral, but like in the sort of genre specific way of like this is a story about what it means to be a good person and what could theoretically compel that. Um, which is also why I said earlier, this is not generally my sort of thing. Um, Morality tales are a thing I find generally deeply uninteresting in any kind of artistic medium, I guess, is probably true. But and I don't know that I'm gonna be thinking about this book for very long. I think I might completely forget about it. Frankly, it very much strikes me as one of those things that I like read and have a positive reaction to, and then kind of just like I read something else that is more my speed, and it just sort of disappears into the background. Or I read something else that is like deeply not my speed, and I get mad about it in a way that is more productive. But just sort of like immediate response was like very positive to this little morality tale. Um, Also, like, yeah, just I have considered myself a nihilist for my entire life, and I still do. So, like, that's where I'm coming from in terms of like not a big fan of morality tales. Um, yeah, so it's the story of Bill Furlong, who is the father of six girls. Yeah, I think six girls. Is works in coal and timber as like a seller. He mostly like drives his lorry around and delivers coal to local businesses or individuals. And it's the Christmas of '85, which is a particularly dark Christmas, particularly rainy one. And he in the course of doing his deliveries he finds he finds a convent, or he doesn't find it, it's in the small town that he has lived in his whole life, but he comes across this convent delivering coal and sees some girls who ask him to take them to the river so they can kill themselves, basically. uh, and again, this is not a thing that is written in a way that where like there are broad swings of emotion. He is a very reserved character. He like talks about this with his wife Eileen, and her response is to lecture him at length about how well they are doing by their own girls, how he is making sure that they have enough money that they don't their girls will never have to be in that situation, how much it is important that um, they just kind of go along to get along. Um, but he is constantly sort of like racked by memories of his own childhood, where a he was born without a father, never knew his father, and his mother died at a fairly young age for him, and he was sort of taken in by this beneficent woman named Mrs. Winslow. Wins, uh, do 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 do, Mrs. Wilson. Um, and so the book is mostly about just or not about, but mostly takes place. Ugh, hair everywhere. Um, Mostly takes place. I think that's workable. I think this is a hair configuration I can work with. Okay. Um, it's mostly him doing coal deliveries, him reminiscing about growing up with Mrs. Wilson, and the way that she sort of took him in uncritically. It's a little bit about him finding his own sort of paternity and lineage, and it's a lot about um, confronting these Magdalene laundries. Magdalene as in Mary Magdalene. That's how I pronounce that. I don't know if that's right at all. Um, and doing what he can to alleviate that, even though it's not a it's not a like I saw an injustice and I fixed it kind of thing. It's a person coming to grips with himself and choosing to do the right thing. Um, I said a bit ago that Dickens is and Christmas Carol specifically is like important, and it's like referenced in the text directly. Like he has a memory of asking for a 500-piece jigsaw puzzle for Christmas and not getting it, but instead getting um, a handful of things that include like, and this is like very well described, and I'm not going to get it quite right, but like a musty old hardcover without the slipcase, not the slipcase, the without the cover of A Christmas Carol, and reading it and like referring to the dictionary in his house and ending up being like one of the better spellers in like his school. And there's a line that's very specific that I wish I could recall, but I just don't have that memory capacity or ability. I don't know. Um, but there's something along the lines of like a line that he's like, it's like he walked tall through school that week, knowing that his life was worth as much as any of the other boys. Um, which like those are kind of the stakes, right? Not like it's not like I knew I was special. It was I knew that I was worth being here. um, and yeah, and that's sort of the stakes of this whole thing. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I'm very fond of this right now, and again, I think I might not remember it in a month, but until then, um, it's lovely, and I'm gonna read literally from the end of this book now. So um, yeah. What am I looking at? It's like a four and a half, 5 page reading, so it's not short. You'll come home. You'll come home with me now, Sarah. Easily enough, he helped her along the front drive and down the hill, past the fancy houses and on towards the bridge. Crossing the river, his eyes again fell on the stout black water flowing darkly along, and a part of him envied the barrow's knowledge of her course, how easily it followed its destined way to the open sea. The air was sharper without his coat, and he felt his self-preservation and courage battling against each other, and thought, once more, of taking the girl to the priest's house. But several times already his mind had gone on ahead, and met him there, and had concluded that the priests already knew. Sure hadn't Miss Coe, sure hadn't Miss Coe, Kehoe, I don't, sorry, sure hadn't Miss Coe as much as told him so. They're all the one. As they walked on, Furlong met people he had known and dealt with for most of his life, most of whom gladly stopped to speak until, looking down, they saw the bare, black feet and realized the girl with him was not one of his own. Some then gave and some then gave them a wide berth, or talked awkwardly or politely, wished him a happy Christmas, and went on. One elderly woman walk. One elderly. Yeah. Take two. One elderly woman out walking a terrier on a long strap confronted him, asking who the girl was, and was she not one of those wands from the laundry. At another point, a little boy looked at Sarah's feet and laughed and called her dirty before his father gave him his hand a rough tug and told him to wisht. Miss Kenny, wearing old clothes he'd never before seen her in, and with whiskey on her breath, stopped and asked what he was doing with a child out in the snow with no shoes on, assuming Sarah was one of his own, and marched off. Not one person they met addressed Sarah or asked where he was taking her. Feeling little or no obligation to say very much or to explain, Furlong smoothed things over as best he could and carried on along with the joy in his heart, matched by the fear of what he could not yet see but knew he would encounter. As they were nearing the center of town and the Christmas lights, a part of him considered backing off and taking the long way home, but he braved it out and carried on, following the path he ordinarily would have taken. A change, it seemed, was coming over the girl, and soon she had to stop and vomited on the street. Good girl, Furlong encouraged her. Get all up. Get that much out of you. In the square, she paused to rest at the lighted manger and stood in a type of trance looking in. Furlong looked in, too, at Joseph's bright robes, the kneeling virgin, the sheep. Someone, since he'd last seen it, had placed wise men and the figure of the baby Jesus there, but it was the donkey that held the girl's attention, and she reached out to stroke and push the snow off his ear. Isn't he lovely? She said. We've not far to go now, Furlong assured. We're almost home. As they carried on along and met more people, Furlong did and met more people Furlong did and did not know, he found himself asking, was there any point in being alive without helping one another? Was it possible to carry on along through all the years, the decades, through an entire life, without once being brave enough to go against what was there, and yet call yourself a Christian and face yourself in the mirror? How light and tall he almost felt, walking along with this girl at his side, and some fresh, new, unrecognizable joy in his heart. Was it possible that the best bit of him, was shining forth and surfacing? Some part of him, whatever it could be called, was there any name for it? Was going wild, he knew. The fact was that he would pay for it, but never once in his whole and unremarkable life had he known a happiness akin to this. Not even when his infant girls were first placed in his arms and he had heard their healthy, obstinate cries. He thought of Mrs. Wilson, of her daily kindness, of how she had corrected and encouraged him, of the small things she had said and done and had refused to do and say, and what she must have known, the things which, when added up, amounted to a life. Had it not been for her, his mother might very well have wound up in that place. In an earlier time, it could have been his own mother he was saving, if saving was what this could be called. And only God knew what would have happened to him, where he might have ended up. The worst was yet to come, he knew. Already he could feel a world of already he could feel a world of trouble waiting for him behind the next door. But the worst that could have happened was already behind him. The thing not done, which could have been, which he would have had to live with for the rest of his life. Whatever suffering he was to meet was a long way from what this girl at his side had already endured, and might yet surpass. Climbing the street towards his own front door with the barefooted girl and the box of shoes, his fear more than outweighed every other feeling, but in his foolish heart he not only hoped, but legitimate... Sorry, got kind of caught up there. Um, okay, take two of that one. Um, Climbing the street towards his own front door with the barefooted girl and the box of shoes, his fear more than outweighed every other feeling, but in his foolish heart, he not only hoped but legitimately believed that they would manage. That's literally the end of that book. I think it's an incredibly powerful thing to end on the word manage. I think there's um, so many possible words there, right? I mean, that's true of every word and in every sentence, of every sentence, in every paragraph, of every paragraph, in every chapter, in every chapter of every novel. But manage there very specifically is there is a crescendo in my mind that is happening there. I don't know that I did a particularly good job of articulating it in the reading I just did, but like there is a crescendo happening that would certainly not lead to the word manage at the end of it. It's a crescendo that would lead to like thrive, say, or they would excel, um, knowing that they would come together, knowing that they would cause a revolution, not not that they would manage, that they would make it work, that they would, but it's um, yeah. I didn't flip my hair very well earlier. It's still getting in my mouth and shit. um, yeah, I quite like this little thing, and hey, hey, thanks for not watching.